Hey, I'm Jusko from ProudMoney.com. Capital One versus Discover. Which credit card company is better? That's what we are going to figure out in this video. But before we do, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel right here if you have not already. And if you have already, I thank you for doing so. So usually we pit one card versus the other, usually cards that are, sort of similar and have some similar features, and decide which one we think is better. In this video, we're going to talk about two credit card companies and decide which we think is better, or which I think is better at least. You may have a different opinion. Anyway, it's Capital One versus Discover, and we're going to check on a number of factors here as to why one company may be better than the other. The reason I choose these two in particular to go against each other is because they have some overlap in terms of not all their customers, but sort of a core customer in many ways, and that may be a customer that is newer to credit, a customer that is maybe in the fair credit zone, maybe low 600s on the bottom end to right around 700, or people that have rebuilt their credit and are trying to get sort of back into the majors again in terms of having a credit card from one of the bigger credit card companies. So both of them are companies that I think people look to when they are either starting out or they're trying to get back into sort of getting the better credit cards that are out there on the market. Now, in pitting them against each other, I've come up with a number of categories where we can look at each one and decide if maybe one of them has an advantage over the other. So the first category is going to be acceptance, because there is a significant difference here. So Capital One partners up with Visa or MasterCard for their credit cards, which means your Capital One credit cards are going to be accepted almost everywhere, not just in the United States, but almost everywhere outside of the United States as well. Discover, on the other hand, pretty, almost 100% coverage here in the United States. However, outside of the United States, not so much. They have been working and working and working to try to be accepted in more countries. But still, if I were going to, leave today to fly overseas and I had the choice to bring a Capital One card or a Discover card, I absolutely would be bringing that Capital One card, because I know Visa or MasterCard, whichever one I might have from Capital One, is going to work almost everywhere, and I know in many places that Discover card is not. So Capital One definitely wins that one in terms of acceptance. All right, second factor, which of these companies is friendlier to people with lower credit scores in the average credit range, like I talked about, maybe low 600s up to 700, whether that means you're someone new to credit or you're someone who has rebuilt credit to a place where you are hoping to be accepted for a credit card from one of the major banks again. And when I look at them, I think it's sort of a toss-up. Both of these companies are much friendlier than the other big banks to people that have lower credit scores, and both of them have cards that are geared toward them. Capital One probably has more cards, in the fact that they have the Capital One Platinum, that is an unsecured card that many people will jump on when they are rebuilding and sort of getting into unsecured cards again. Maybe they had to have secured cards or had to have some not very good cards from smaller banks while they rebuilt their credit. So Capital One may be easier if you are really on that lower, very low credit score range and you're just, kind of trying to get up the ladder enough so that you can get a credit card. But Discover is probably a little friendlier to people, or at least as friendly to people who are completely new to credit, or maybe whose credit scores are a little bit better in that fair credit score range. And I think the Discover It card is probably a better card for many people that are new to credit than what they might get from Capital One if they were completely new to credit. And Discover has a secured card that, even though you have to put a security deposit down, it does graduate very quickly to that Discover It card if you make your payments on time. So there is a quick way to sort of get to that Discover It card, where Capital One can be a little more of a toss-up. Their secured card doesn't graduate as I make this video, so if you get their secured card, it might help you build your credit, but it's not necessarily going to get you to a higher place within Capital One. But Capital One has more choices for people whose credit scores are lower. So that's why it's a toss-up, because there are a lot of different things there. But both of them, as you can see, are sort of more friendly to people with lower credit scores than many of the other companies. So I'm going to call this one a toss-up and not give it to either one. Number 3, credit lines. Starting credit lines as well as credit line increases for their customers. I think both of these companies can be very generous, again, in comparison to other credit card companies out there for people whose credit scores maybe are not as high. I probably would give this to Capital One because I think they tend to give out more large credit lines than Discover does. I feel like Discover, if they feel like they are going to be your number one card out of your wallet, they're more likely to be friendly to you in terms of credit lines, where Capital One essentially just hands out a little more money, in my opinion, in terms of credit lines. Now, credit line increases, Discover may have a little bit of an advantage there because I think Discover's maybe a little more hesitant to give you a ton right out of the gate, but if they see that you are using their card, and especially if it seems like you're using it a decent amount and you're going to be sort of a core customer of theirs, well then they're willing to give you a more of a credit line increase quicker because they want to keep, I don't want to say string you along, that sounds bad, but they want to keep, giving you more and seeing if you can handle it, where I think Capital One tends to give you more up front, but their credit line increases may not be as easy to get. But I mean, that's almost sort of a toss-up too, because one sort of gives you more up front and the other one will give you more down the road. I think everybody has a different experience between these two companies when it comes to credit line and credit lines and credit line increases, though, so I'd love to hear your comments in the comments section if you have dealt with both companies. Number 4, credit card lineup. So Discover has a handful of credit cards that they have had seemingly forever and that really don't change very much. They have their flagship Discover It card, which is pretty good. Their Discover Miles travel card is only okay, and the rest of their lineup is really only okay also. So their Discover Secured card is one I highly recommend if you're someone with lower credit scores, but overall not a varied lineup much from Discover, where Capital One has a much longer lineup with many different cashback and travel cards, the Saver Dining card, and a lot going on with Capital One. So if you are someone that ends up sort of being loyal to one of these or the other, and you want a more variety in the cards you can get out of them, Capital One definitely beats out Discover here. And then the 5th and final factor, customer service. Now, I've dealt with both of these companies, and honestly, I haven't seen a whole lot of difference between the two. I think they've both been fine, but I do know from hearing the comments of many people over many videos that I have done that Discover has really high brand loyalty. Once someone becomes a Discover card customer, it feels like many people just feel like that is the company for them, and you will hear people talk positively about Discover, as far as I'm concerned, much more so than any other credit card company out there. So I definitely have to give this one to Discover. I think Capital One, they're not as much of a mixed bag as they used to be. I think people used to have a lot of complaints about Capital One. I think overall people have a okay idea about Capital One right now, but Discover's loyalty seems so high that they definitely win this factor. So we had 5 factors there. Capital One takes 2 of them, Discover takes 1 of them. 2 of them are a toss-up. Overall, I give the victory to Capital One. Wider acceptance, especially if you want to use it outside of the United States, and a better credit card lineup overall. I would love to hear your thoughts as to whether I have scored this correctly. Please put them in the comments section below. Otherwise, I thank you for watching, and as always, please go to proudmoney.com, where we do credit card reviews, we talk personal finance, we talk deals, and all sorts of other fun stuff too. Thank you for watching. Bye.